Hi, my name is Leonard Simchek, and I feel very blessed to be here at Unity of Las Vegas. And I'd like to share with you some thoughts I have about our inner GPS. Maybe to start off with, it took me about 5 hours to get from Orange County to Vegas. And my GPS in my cell phone said it would take an hour and 15 minutes longer because there was a crash, an accident. But the GPS was able to relocate me and help me get off of the 15 and maneuver my way all around, telling me get off here, and then I was able to get back onto the freeway when there was very little traffic. Now, as I was getting suggestions from my GPS, I trusted that Siri knew exactly what I was needing to do. I didn't have any questions. I just knew that I would be informed. Take a right, take a left, go here, go there, and I would be able to save myself an hour and 15 minutes, and I did. Now, most of us have these cell phones now with GPSs programmed into it. Now, my voice is an Australian woman. I know Lisa has a Indian man, and Jim was saying he's a bit disappointed he couldn't find a voice with boys from the hood. But whatever, we all have our own particular voice that we're hearing from our inner GPS. I'd like to share with you when I first came in contact with my own inner GPS. It was 1987. I was living in Australia at the time, and I had to take a series of meditation courses, really deep meditation. And I attended one particular weekend of meditation and finished about 9:30 in the evening. And if you've ever done meditation over a period of time, you get into a zone. It's like my judgmental mind was just vanished. I was in just a zone of total peace and tranquility. I got into my car, turned on the ignition, and as I was driving, I heard this inner voice, take a right turn. I just listened to the voice and I took a right turn. I'm driving and it says, take a left turn. Okay, took a left turn. And this inner voice gave me instructions over 20 minutes about right turns, left turns, going straight. And since my judgmental mind was not very involved, I just followed the instructions. But after a while, I knew it was taking a long time. And I said, well, how long is this going on? And the inner voice says, you're almost there. I thought to myself, I'm almost there. Where is there? And it says, there's a red brick building on the right side. And sure enough, I saw the red brick building. That's the place. I turned around, did a U-turn, parked my car, and then the inner voice says, talk to the people in the building. I says, wait a minute, talk to the people in the building. But no sooner did I hear that inner voice when a young couple came out of that building and they stood in front of their car on the street. And they just stood there as if they were waiting for somebody. And my inner voice said, talk to them. Now, at the time, I was working at a child and adolescent psychiatry department in a teaching hospital in Sydney. And I thought to myself, what would I say if one of my patients came in and said, they're hearing voices to talk to strangers? Well, I think my inner critic just kicked in because I folded my arms and I says, I'm not speaking to them. If I need to talk to them, they need to come and speak with me. Well, they didn't do anything. They just stood by their car, and then they eventually got into their car and drove away. Now, when they left, I felt a sense of relief. Phew. But then I felt regret. Something was going on, and I just didn't listen to my inner guidance system. 2 weeks later, I was on the train going to the hospital, and a man in a gray suit sits next to me. And my inner voice says, talk to him. I said, here we go again. I said, can you give me some help? And when I had that thought, the man said to me, I said, I noticed you're reading a newspaper. You got a newspaper there. Anything interesting? I looked at the Sydney Morning Herald and I really said, oh, there's some stuff going on. I haven't really looked at it very much. But all of a sudden, we leapt into a conversation about meditation. He taught meditation, and we had this incredible conversation. But then he said something very important to me. He said, I had this feeling that I was supposed to talk to you. And then I realized it wasn't just me. We all had this inner GPS. Now I call the inner GPS the guiding power of spirit. And we all have this inner guidance system, but we often get disconnected. So I want to kind of share with you, why is it that sometimes we may feel really connected with this divine message, this divine guidance, and sometimes we're totally disconnected. And to go there, I have to maybe talk about the stages of spiritual development, because this is kind of an important key to our evolution. So imagine we are souls. We're starting off as souls, and we get brought into this earth, into these physical bodies, into a vessel. And the first stage of spiritual development is adaptation. Now, adaptation means we are brought into physical form. We are embodied souls, souls on a physical excursion. But we're learning about adapting to the culture, and we're adapting to society and everything that goes along with society. Now, to get a feel for what that really means, I'm going to bring in the story about my grandmother who raised gourds, or grew gourds. And she told me that when you take a gourd and you put it into a glass jar, it grows and takes the form of the glass jar. And so I did that. Sure enough, I put some gourds, little gourds, into jam jars. And over time, they took the shape of the jam jar. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. Well, in many ways, we're a bit like gourds. We start off as souls, connected to spirit. But over time, we start adapting to this vessel. And then we start to believe, I am a glass jar. I am the vessel, without really realizing, or we forget that we really are the souls. Now that takes us to the second stage of spiritual development, and that is becoming an orphan. Now after a while, we forget that we are really connected with spirit, and we become furthest away from home where we're really connected with love and inner peace. And the orphan stage is we believe we are the orphan, we are the glass jar. So I am Leonard. If people ask you, who are you? We usually say our name or our work or where we're at. We forget. If someone says to you, who are you? We don't say, well, I'm a soul inside a vessel. No, I say, I am this glass jar. And in the orphan phase, we actually believe this is who we are. It's kind of ludicrous when you really think about it, since we really are what's inside the glass jar. Now, from the orphan phase, it takes us to the next phase. In the next stage, we get wake-up calls. Now, wake-up calls start with someone tapping on the glass jar and saying, hey, you're more than the glass jar. But as we know, if I don't listen to the taps, the little subtle taps, that after a while someone's going to throw a brick, and that wake-up call becomes a crash. You know, there's studies done about mystical experiences, and the number one cause of mystical experiences is crash and burns. We crash and burn, our glass has been shattered, but we're more open to be connected with our soul once again. Now, from the wake-up calls, the next stage of spiritual development is staying awake. And that means I am willing to stay awake. And as Eckhart Tolle once said, there's a willingness to stay awake to the unawakened parts. That means I'm willing to stay awake to my glass jar. I can see and feel this glass jar. And I'm willing to stay awake to what my identity has taken shape. Now, from staying awake, we move into the next phase, which is healing wounds and breaking free. Now, I've been a therapist for well over 40 years, and when I think of healing wounds, I always think of the three major belief systems that really hamper us. One is that we're unworthy, we're not good enough, or we're unlovable. Those are the three big areas that really stop us from really embracing ourselves as loving souls, of who we really are. And so healing wounds means practicing forgiveness, letting go of the glass jar, letting go of that identity, that ego identity that we believe we really are. And when we do that, it takes us to the final stage of spiritual development, and that is moving into co-creation, knowing that I am a soul connected with spirit, co-creating. Now, the strange thing about these 6 stages of development is that we go through them over and over and over again. We just don't go through it once. And I think of the lobster. You may not know this, but lobsters, in the first 5 years of their life, they go through 25 shells. So they start to grow, and then as they feel some constraint, they have to release the lobster shell. And when they release the lobster shell, they're vulnerable to the environment. And then they create a new shell, they start to expand, but then over time, when they grow, they have to release their shell. And that's a bit like our glass jars. We grow spiritually, then we break free of our glass jar, and we move into the next phase. And so spiritual development is we go around and around and around. Now that takes us to our inner guidance system, because it's important to realize that we are all, as we move through this spiritual development, we can connect with our inner guidance system. And I want to leap to a story about my sister. So she passed away 5 years ago from cancer. She didn't believe really in the spiritual realm, the spiritual world. And whenever I tried talking to her about this, she just didn't want to talk about it. And then after she passed away, I felt her come to me in a vision. And she says, "Leonard, the other side is like Disneyland on steroids." And then she went on to describe why she didn't believe. She says, really, to really connect with spirit, it's a bit like we're television sets. And the first thing we have to do is we have to actually plug our television set into the outlet. And then when we plug our television set in, we've got to actually turn the TV on. And then not only do we turn the TV on, but we have to get connected to cable. And then when we're connected to cable, we've got to find the right channel in which we're hearing the right messages. And then we actually have to pay attention and watch. And that takes us to a little bit about our own inner guidance system, because as I mentioned, we are embodied souls. So our physical bodies are here as vessels. We're vessels for spirit. So to really connect, to begin to connect with our inner guidance, we need to take a look at our body. So in our body, in our senses, breath is one of the key ways that we can begin to quiet the mind and move within. So I'm going to ask you right now just to take some deep breaths with me. Just take a nice deep cleansing breath in. And as you exhale, just let go. Thich Nhat Hanh said that breath is the bridge to consciousness. Take another deep breath in and let that go. Now I want you to imagine a time when you felt deeply loved in your life. And as you breathe in love. And as you exhale, just let the love circulate. Breathing in love, letting go and circulating. Breathing in love, letting go and circulating. And as you still the mind, you can actually use your mental arena and then ask Spirit, show me where you want me to go. Show me what you want me to do. Who do you want me to speak to? What do you want me to say? And we start getting messages from Spirit because we're asking and we're sharing. Now, another way of we really start hearing messages from our inner guidance system is through relationships. Relationships, I don't know about you, but sometimes even in a supermarket, someone will say something to me and I feel a resonance. It's almost like, wow, what they're saying is truth. And relationships and our communication with one another really helps us find out what our messages are. Many years ago, my mother passed away, but she had dementia the last 5 years of her life. And I was visiting her on Mother's Day. And she had dementia. And so I said to her, Mom, am I your brother, your father, or your son? And she looks at me, has a bit of a twinkle in her eye, and she says, you're all of them. I says, whoa. I says, what's my name? And she said, accept. I understood accept, like acceptance. That was my lesson. I had to learn how to accept myself. It's like Spirit was speaking through my mother right directly to me, like I had a direct connection. You may be able to hear these connections in your relationships when they are speaking with you. Also, we hear messages through our inner guidance system, often through sound, maybe music. When our mind is still, we can hear and we can actually see differently. Maybe we can hear with the ears of love, see with the eyes of love. And when we begin to see, we can actually see inside the vessel. I was at another workshop, and in this workshop we had to move into dyads periodically. And there was one woman at the workshop that nobody really liked. She was very cantankerous. She wore awful smelling perfume that just smelled. And everybody avoided her when we had to do an exercise of pairing off. Well, the instructor says, pair off with another person. And I was slow on my feet because everybody else paired with somebody else. And I was stuck with her. And so the instructor says, gaze into each other's eyes. Say nothing, but just gaze into each other's eyes. So I'm looking at her. She's looking at me. And as I looked at her, it's like we both began to fall into each other's souls. I saw beneath her vessel, and I saw her soul. She saw my soul. Tears came to her eyes. Tears came to my eyes. And I know that we were seeing each other's very soul. So when you are in a relationship, or when you use your eyes differently and use your ears differently, these are ways that Spirit speaks to us. And some of us, as I said, mine are my inner voices, and they kind of speak to me. I'd like to just finish by sharing with another story. Many years ago, I went to Long Beach Convention Center to listen to the Dalai Lama. I always loved the Dalai Lama. And so I went to listen to him, and back then, I didn't have a GPS or I didn't have my cell phone with the GPS, and I had maps, like paper maps like we used to have. And I was going on a one-way street, and I was checking my maps and not really paying attention. I was in the orphan phase. I just had fallen asleep. And then I noticed that the street turned into one way, and I was supposed to be in the far left lane to make a left-hand turn. Well, I wasn't in the far left lane. I was in the middle lane, and then this is the street I had to turn, so I quickly turned, but almost hit a Lexus, because they were in the right lane. I was in the wrong lane. And, have you ever had kind of like a time when you almost had an accident, you kind of freeze? Anyway, I pulled over to the curb, grateful. Oh my God, I didn't have an accident. But that Lexus parked right in back of me. I looked in the rearview mirror, and in the driver's seat was a young man, maybe about in his mid-20s, and he's swearing. I can tell he was enraged, and he's doing like this here, and right next to him was a woman about his age, and And she was just staring like petrified while he's just going through this here. And I get this inner message, talk to him. Of course, by now, of course, if I'm getting a clear message, I figured, okay. I get out of my car. And as I'm walking to this guy's Lexus, he rolls down the window and he yells at me, "You crazy old man, what are you doing? This is a brand new Lexus. You almost banged it up. And this is my sister next to me. You scared her. What's wrong with you? You're crazy." I looked at him. I says, "Please forgive me. I'm sorry. It was my fault. I'm on my way to see the Dalai Lama to learn inner peace." The guy looks at me and looks at his sister, and he was rather stunned, and he couldn't say anything. He says, "Well, just drive safely." And that was kind of like a wake-up call for me because I had checked out. That was a wake-up call. Okay, pay attention. This is important to pay attention. Spirit speaking to me. Got in my car and I was back into the zone. Okay, take a right turn, take a left turn. I was worried. There's about 18,000 people. How am I going to get a parking space? I pull up into the parking attendant, and the man says, "Boy, you're in luck. Someone just pulled out right by the front of the convention center. Just take a left and you'll find your space." Sure enough, took a left, and there was a space open for me. I went into the convention center, and I'm walking into the main hall. Now, I had a ticket to go into the riser, into the balcony, but I'm just kind of walking. My inner guidance says, "Just keep on walking." I show it to the attendant. He waves me on. I'm walking down the aisle. And I realize I'm at the front of the convention center, and I saw there's a seat to the right. I said, "Great." I move into the seat, and then a woman yells at me, "This is a VIP section." I look, and sure enough, she's wearing a VIP. Everyone else is wearing a VIP. I says, "Oh, I'm sorry." I go to leave, and she says, "Oh, just sit down." I sat down. Who am I to argue with my inner GPS? Shortly thereafter, the Dalai Lama walks on stage. I was broken open. I was connected. I was one with Spirit. And I heard his message, which I want to share with you. His message was, stay awake. Stay awake. Stay awake to love. Stay awake to love. And connect with your inner GPS. God bless you.